This video is funded in part by Jerry Likes His non-actual name. Boy, what a show off of a name that is. Hey everyone, Jack5 here, and unfortunately I must bring you all bad news. I'm very unprepared for this video. Not only was I busy battling a random sickness, but it's been over a year since I've properly reviewed a game. Even then, the one that I want to cover today is out of my league. All you have to do is look at my games I've wasted my life playing list. Let's see, Team Fortress 2, the new Animal Crossing, Portal, Distance, Half-Life 2, Bloons, the Stanley Parable. You know what, let's just take all the source games and stuff them here. And don't forget Gran Turismo 3. What you'll come to find is that I'm going to talk about something that is completely unlike anything here. So instead of trying to review it, how about I just recommend this game for a change? A game so obscure that it slipped by all of us and we didn't even notice. Surprise Party. Hey, I told you it was obscure. This little known game released in late June 2020, and it may have occupied the dark recesses of my mind before I actually gave it a chance fairly recently. It's self-published by a guy completely new to Steam, and looking at the screenshots and vague description, you'd be forgiven for assuming this is a typical role-playing game made in RPG Maker. I've gone on the record as not having the attention span or memory capacity required to play more traditional RPG games. The fact that I'm dedicating an entire video to this game in particular should be ringing alarm bells for anybody familiar with my content. Truthfully, Surprise Party isn't your standard RPG. The description isn't exaggerating. It is a horror stealth puzzle game, and it's the puzzles that interested me the most. That and the game being free. Actually, the free download was most definitely the deciding factor. But we have to remember, going into this, that game development is hard. Not everybody has the ability to make games worth playing and stick by them. I certainly can't muster up the energy to finish and release my game, so I really want to show Dylan that he's got what it takes. He's actually working on another game right now called Broken, and I really do want him to succeed in finding a place on Steam and possibly other platforms. So here's me telling you to try Surprise Party for yourself and check out Broken as well. Links in the description. But if you really want to hear my thoughts on the game first, I will oblige. You're introduced to Bob, one of the most projectable protagonists any person could ever create, and considering what happens to him, that's oddly coincidental. Him and the gang, Bruno, Lance, and Shauna, are attempting to trespass onto the local carnival before it's scheduled to open. The basic controls are established during this prologue. You're taught to walk around with the arrow keys, check your inventory with X, and interact with Enter. Dealing with these controls isn't difficult at all. Heck, you don't even need to open your inventory to play. But getting around took me longer than I expected. There is a lot of space between tiles on the grid compared to the size of the characters, and the trees you have to walk around are disproportionate. Basically, I spent a lot of time trying to walk into areas that I actually couldn't because of the weird shape of the trees. Thankfully, this issue wasn't as severe anywhere else in the game. But before I move on to more of how the game feels to play, let's talk about the art on display here. I know I'm jumping further into the game to show you this, but the best location in my opinion is the carnival during its opening day. Here you play as Gene, Bob's bland father capable of telepathic communication, and are tasked with finding evidence of Bob being lost. It was this part of the game that first blew me away in terms of aesthetics. Walking around the entire carnival in the daytime actually made me invested in the location and the characters. The art style Dylan went for really complements this part of the game. Let's not forget Surprise Party's more traditional drawings though. These accompanying pictures are amazing, not just the cutscenes but also the icons for the dialogue. I'm amazed that Dylan was able to communicate so much with such simple character designs. Carly is easily the best humanoid character, being the only one that actually looks human due to having a proper nose instead of a brightly colored mess, but all the alien bosses look really good as well with designs that match their abilities. Don't let these cheery clips distract you though. Most of the game takes place in the dark, which is where the horror and stealth gameplay can be found. But what about Surprise Party requires you to sneak around in the locations you end up in? When Bob and his gang trespass onto the carnival, everything goes dark, you find pink slime everywhere, you have an encounter with the main alien antagonist, and then everyone is randomly able to escape. Then, once the carnival has closed on its opening day, Gene wakes up late at night and meets up with the parents of the other children. It's here that the aliens finally introduce themselves and capture everyone except Bob, who somehow manages to escape their grasp, but not before being fused with a balloon. And you have to play as a balloon for the rest of the game. A balloon. Need I remind you, balloons? They pop. Once you've become the balloon, the game revolves around you exploring barely lit buildings, completing puzzles and avoiding enemies. The most common of these enemies are mosquitoes that each have a patrol area that they randomly move about in. If they spot you, they charge, then after a few seconds they return to their patrol. Bear in mind that you pop and die in one hit, and add on top of that these large bounding boxes and the limited vision you always have due to the dark rooms. You know what all this leads to? Dying a lot. But that's fine, you know, RPG games don't need to be easy. There's always some room for a challenge. However, dying in Surprise party also causes you to game over and have to reload your save. That amounts to 5 seconds spent outside the game each death. Speaking of dying, I should also mention something iffy with the enemy AI. I said before that mosquitoes move randomly. That's true, but would you believe me if I said they move too randomly? Yeah, you may have to wait several cycles before an enemy with a tiny patrol area will allow you to pass it. And when there are tons of enemies in one place, you may have to rely on chance in order to get past every single one of them. The charming visuals and audio of this game are a decent portrayal of the skill required to finish it. Thankfully, I was very patient with each building, and I was able to finish all 5 of them in under 45 minutes each. Just be aware that these flaws in the stealth gameplay may annoy you if you don't have the drive to keep going. However, if you can handle the AI uprising, then the game's puzzles are a more than welcome break. A large majority of the puzzles in Surprise Party revolve around you collecting objects scattered around each area and finding things they can be used on. The prologue wasn't entirely satisfying, since I thought the sharp stick was a bolt cutter I could use to cut off the lock, but instead it was actually a stick and I was meant to clear out some thorns with it. I can be more lenient with puzzles since different people get stuck in different places based on their style of problem solving. If it helps, in most places where I got stuck, I found that I needed to backtrack and interact with something earlier in the building. But I can't forgive Dylan for allowing a balloon to pick up and use a handsaw, but preventing it from picking up and dropping a simple glass jar to get a key. No, you have to use a mallet for that. There are other kinds of puzzles, including pushing objects onto targets and a combination puzzle. My favorite puzzles are the pushing ones, since their solutions were obvious and they were always combined with the stealth gameplay that I had grown used to by that time. Now then, using wordplay that I've written out of the script to make a transition, I'm going to discuss the game's power-ups. These power-ups, or effects in RPG terms, are found scattered around the last 4 buildings. All of them last only 5 seconds and turn you into various balloon animals with special properties. The cat power-up increases the opacity of transparent blocks, the chameleon prevents enemies from knowing your location, and the rabbit makes you run fast. The cat really doesn't do much, and the rabbit was only added to make the game scarier and harder to control, so I have to go with the chameleon as my favorite power-up. There are enemies that slowly hone in on you in the buildings you use it in, and causing them to stop in their tracks is a lifesaver. Even better, because they are so slow and there are so many chameleon power-ups, you can basically freeze time. It does break your immersion when the chameleons last twice as long during the boss fight, but it was a necessary tweak to make such a fight work. Oh yes, just like most other RPG games, Surprise Party has bosses in all of the 5 buildings. First, the shelter monster. All it does is patrol the top area like any one of the mosquito enemies, albeit with a very annoying and repetitive moan. You have to put in a lot of effort to beat this boss. Finding a screwdriver from a toolbox and unscrewing the air vents in the walls sounds fine, until RNG comes along and randomizes the box that contains the tool you need. I had to circle the room several times in order to memorize the box and vent locations, and then get good luck on a whim to finally unscrew all the vents. I had similar frustrations with Oddball's fight, which was basically an RNG nightmare, even which copies of him kill you are randomized. As for Two Timer's fight, it was just a chase sequence with all of its problems inherited from the rabbit power-up. Malice, on the other hand, was easily the best boss in the game because of how creative and quick I had to be with my use of chameleon power-ups, while also completing a push puzzle at the same time, and you already know what I think about push puzzles. Now before I go any further, I must warn you all that I'm about to spoil the contents of the final building in this game. I really do encourage you to try out Surprise Party for yourself if you are interested in how I've described it so far. If you'd rather skip past the spoilers and hear my final thoughts, go to the timestamp being displayed on the screen right now. I'll give you a few more seconds by writing more words into the script. Don't say I didn't warn you. Okay, here we go. The final building you have to explore in the game is the Carnival's big top, and Dylan really does pull out all the stops here. I was excited from the moment I got inside, since it's here that the game finally introduces a party system. In order to complete the endgame puzzles, you're given the ability to switch between Bob and Carly using these objects, and this opens up a whole new angle to the problem solving in Surprise Party. Sure, it may feel a little forced to have to switch party members to pass certain hazards, but these puzzles were definitely the most engaging in the entire game, even if it came at the cost of power-ups feeling misused and Bob seeming less important. Another enemy type is introduced here, being slime pools that you could only step on once. Honestly, the inclusion of these enemies felt arbitrary, for they mostly accomplished the same thing as regular walls and hazards, but I am thankful they were in the game because I still had to deal with the enemy AI. There's one other problem with them, and it's only apparent while the party system is active. When you're controlling Bob, both characters occupy the same space, but when Carly is in front, Bob trails behind you by 1 tile. If you're thinking that you're twice as likely to die because of this, that's not true at all. Bob is invulnerable while in this state, for some reason, but he does obstruct the AI. Look at this. No amount of RNG will save you here. You either have to risk dying by hoping the enemy tries to move towards Bob instead of Carly, or you have to use the slime pools to make a cheap escape. I ended up doing the latter much more often once I realized I could do this. Since we're at the end of our journey, the leader of the alien antagonists, Turncoat, is the boss you have to encounter at the end of the game, and he actually has voice lines from the start of the final building, which I was certainly surprised by.
So, you have finally come back. And some company too, it seems. Anyone would think that you're throwing me some kind of surprise party.
There are two parts to the fight. The first part is pretty easy, basically having to rescue Jean and the other parents and children by completing 4 stealth sequences in a row. Only in one of them do the slime pools seem to serve a purpose. But the second part of the boss fight caught me off guard. Oddball and Turncoat fuse together to become Oddcoat, whom you end up fighting in a traditional RPG battle as the parents. When this first happened, I was ecstatic. It was definitely the most climactic moment in the game. So I started fighting the mosquitoes to reduce the total number of enemies attacking me at once. Everyone in my party dies, and I get a game over. Alright, then I'll try confusing and stunning my enemies for a change. Oddcoat deals a lot of damage, so with him unable to attack, everything should be much easier. Party dies, game over. Oh, maybe I'm not up to speed on how to play RPGs. I don't tend to play them after all. I'll start prioritizing the status effects that I could give to my party. They die, game over. This same pattern kept happening over and over and over again. You know when you're about to lose an RPG battle, but I couldn't let go. I was so close to the end of the game. I've seen all this dialogue before, just let me fight. Hey, did you know that status elements exist? So I turned the game off. I really thought I was going to beat it in one session, but it was getting late and I needed a break. When I tried again the next day, I attacked Oddcoat first. He died. In fact, all the enemies died instantly, and the game ended. Are you serious? The mosquitoes have the same amount of health as the big boss in the middle? That's like saying an octopus and a grain of sand are equally sentient. I see you're at the end of the game, but you're one of the 80% of people that are too dumb to play RPGs. Don't worry, here's how you win. You need to backtrack to the beginning of the game, grab the mallet, and smash him over the head with it! So I really enjoyed Surprise Party. No joke. It was actually a lot of fun. It was challenging at times, and I did overreact about certain things, but that's what games are supposed to do, aren't they? If there was no challenge I needed to overcome, what would be the point of me playing it? Dylan did a really good job here, and I'm proud that he actually made it onto Steam with such a high quality product. So much care went into Surprise Party, and you could really tell. I'm serious when I say this. Go and play the game. It's free on Steam, and it only took me 5 hours of total playtime to complete. So it's perfect if you have that much time on your hands and can handle a harder than usual game. Other than that, I think I'm fit to end this video here. If you like this style of video, or are just browsing after seeing one of my other videos, please subscribe. I need validation. Assuming that you've already done that, thank you so much. And as always, I will see you all next time. Do you want exclusive benefits, including seeing your name in the credits of my new videos? Then click the top right icon in this video or the link in the description to go to my Patreon page. Any level of support is very much appreciated.